We're live, everyone. Welcome to This Week in Real Estate, hosted by yours truly. I'm a bearded man of real estate, and this is, I promise, this is completely professional. The first time I didn't have sound, so I'm just redoing the intro. So, hey, everyone. Thanks for dropping by. Thanks for dropping by over on Instagram. I see you over there. We're broadcasting on Facebook, on 2 accounts, on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Kick, Instagram, and we're broadcasting live on Clubhouse. So thanks everyone for joining. You can comment on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and I can display your comment and talk about you, just like Olivier. What's up, man? He said, let's go. Scap the Appraiser said, I was just typing the same thing. And for some reason, Olivier said it may be giving a warning over on the YouTube chats. If it's still doing that, I can still see them and I can display them. So we're all good there. I love technology. We are wondering where Matt LaMarche is. Everyone ping Matt LaMarche. Just let him know he's missing the show. If you want to add your voice to the podcast, you can go find us on Clubhouse. We're in the real estate networking group. We have a live stream there. And you can actually raise your hand. If you're a real person, have a real bio, you can add your voice to the podcast and some of these comments. You comment on some of these articles that we're going to be talking about today. Janice Fleming RE is over on Instagram. She says, hi, Ray. If you're on Instagram, I can give your username a shout out if you want to participate in the show, but I can't display the comment because that's how it's set up. But we have a ton of stuff to talk about today. So do all the subscribing things. Subscribe, hit that bell. Maybe you're listening to the podcast and you're like, is this show live? Yes, the show is live every Wednesday at 1 o'clock Eastern. So if you want to join the show live, you're more than welcome to. If you want to know how to do that, one of the easiest things you could do is go over to YouTube and hit the bell to be notified whenever we go live. And I used to like get the stream up a day ahead of time, but one of the things I noticed was that anytime I scheduled it a day ahead of time, the participation was way lower than if I would just schedule it like 15 minutes before the show. So that's why it's always scheduled 15 minutes before the show, and you can't find it because for whatever reason, the alerts go out and everyone joins right then. So thanks for joining, everyone. Compass has an active lawsuit with Zillow, but they're not the only ones. We have more lawsuits in the making today. We're going to talk about that. We're going to see if we can play and react to a couple of clips of Byron Lazine's interview with Roy Goulad in just a bit. But before we get to that, I got to find the sounder. There it is. Before we get to that, Costar is now also suing Zillow. So Zillow and Costar, Costar and Compass both suing Zillow. It's not the lawsuit that's going to shut Zillow down, but it is one that's kind of annoying. And I think the image on Broke Agent Media is pretty funny because it's those birds from Disney that do the mine. Basically, CoStar is accusing Zillow of stealing 46,000 images, 46,979. So right at 47,000 images, and displaying those images on the Zillow website. And at first, when I heard about this, I thought, oh, okay, so that means that somebody uploaded those images to CoStar, and maybe that person also uploaded the same image somewhere on Zillow, or, you know, it's some agent doing stuff, and they just counted them up and said, here's all the offenses. That's what I thought. And so I thought it wouldn't be that big of a deal. Maybe they would just pay him some money and be done with it. But it looks like there's a little more to this. So the claims at a glance, the number of images allegedly infringed, 46,979. I'm reading from Broke Agent Media. The estimated views, only 250,000 displays. I don't feel like that's a lot, considering I'm trying to get 30 to 40 to 50,000 displays for each one of my listings. So I don't feel like that's a high number. But the sites involved are Zillow, Redfin, Realtor, Trulia, StreetEasy, HotPads, and Out East. I've never heard of Out East. I'm not familiar with them. I guess you have to be out east. CoStar's evidence are images with visible CoStar watermark appearing across multiple listing platforms. Well, there you go. The legal precedent, Zillow has previously found liable in a copyright case brought by VHT Incorporated. Okay. So CoStar owns apartments.com, homes.com, LoopNet, claims to have built the world's largest library of real estate photos. So they also purchased Matterport recently, and I think that kind of goes in line with their goal here of basically, if you want to live anywhere in the US, you can go to one of the CoStar websites. If you want an office space anywhere in the US, you go to one of the CoStar websites, and they have the images and they have the data already there. So they're employing thousands of photographers, adding 2 million plus new images annually. Each copyright photo is registered and watermarked with CoStar's star-shaped logo, a visible feature in many of the allegedly infringed images on Zillow. So according to CoStar, Zillow used these photos. So it's not the agent who represents the property taking it and cropping it. According to CoStar, Zillow is using these to populate unclaimed property images that property owners prompt property owners to advertise. So inactive listings for multifamily rental properties, to power features like Zestimates and personalized property recommendations, and also to syndicate listings across partner websites like redfinrealtor.com. The complaint also uses examples of listings on Zillow. In this case, the watermark is initially obscured in the thumbnail view, but once it's clicked on and expanded, it shows the watermark. So check this out. Check this. This image is what made me go, oh, that's different. Because in the Zillow crop on their website, the CoStar part of that image is gone. Now, Zillow has a lot of options on how to crop these images. And you can easily change the aspect ratio by taking this, it looks like maybe a 3:4 square, and making it 4:3. And if you were to do that, increase the width, basically is what I'm saying. You would kind of just, it looks like almost you could just drag this up. This image would auto adjust and show both corners of the photo. And to me, it's significant that Zillow has a display that automatically crops the sides of the photo out where watermarks are most often found. That's a choice. You could just display the whole photo. And then if you did that, it would also make these other photos, it would change their aspect ratios to do the same thing. They have the little box of 4 photos on the right side and the large photo on the left side. When you click the image, you can see which part is actually cropped out. It's both on the left and right, again, where watermarks are most often found. And sure enough, there's the CoStar watermark. So how would you guys like to be the summer intern that's like, ooh, I've got a job with CoStar? And they're like, okay, so what we want you to do is sit at this computer and you're going to go to every single listing on Zillow. And we need you to keep count of how many watermarks. These images were also syndicated on redfinrealtor.com, both labeled provided by Zillow, according to the filing. You see at the top here, it says provided by Zillow. This is on realtor.com, and it's using the CoStar image. Yeah, and the same, it's even more cropped on realtor.com. That to me, like, I feel like they should adjust this to where it's not cropping where watermarks usually are. And nobody wants to see the watermark that's on the whole image. I've seen property managers and stuff do that. And I understand why you do that, because people will often take these photos off the internet and post them on Craigslist and say, hey, if you want to rent this home for $100, send me $1,000 in the mail and I'll send you the key. And people do that. So property managers have started putting a watermark over the whole entire image. That way, if the image is stolen or used on some of their website, that property manager is the first contact, and people can contact them and say, is this real? So, all right. That kind of changed my opinion, seeing where it was cropped and also how it was displayed. Now on Redfin, it's not cropped. Look at that. On Redfin, you can see clearly the CoStar watermark. And is it noted provided by Zillow? Yeah, at the bottom of the Redfin listing, it says provided by Zillow. So Redfin, that's kind of interesting. Both Redfin and Realtor.com could just get the IDX feed, but instead they're getting a feed from Zillow. I'm still kind of flabbergasted that it's only 250,000 views, but Zillow's alleged use of the CoStar image contributed to growth in its multifamily rental listings, which expanded from 40,000 to 60,000 properties a year during the same time. Zillow's rental revenue jumped 33%. Zillow claimed 2.2 million active rentals. Zillow entered exclusive syndication deals with Redfin and Realtor.com, becoming the sole provider of multifamily listings. I guess if you're in the business of taking a bunch of photos and having the rights to those photos, the syndication of that information would be a big deal too. I'm curious how much, like, how do you calculate the damage? CoStar is seeking permanent injunctive relief, statutory damages potentially exceeding $1 billion. That's a lot. Destruction of infringing images from Zillow's system, and possible further suits if Redfin and Realtor.com do not remove the infringing content. So Redfin and Realtor can say, well, we were just using the syndicated feed from Zillow. And now that they know, now that they are aware, they have to now make this change, is what CoStar is saying. So here's your chance to not get sued. CoStar has signaled that Redfin and Realtor.com may also face legal action if allegedly infringing images are not taken down. So what's the fastest way for Redfin and Realtor.com to take those down? I mean, I guess just stop the feed and then figure out how to exclude them. That's going to hurt the Zillow business a bit.
Is this the beginning of an intellectual property round of lawsuits?
Yeah, I mean, when VHT sued Zillow and won, that was eye-opening for a lot of people. I mean, if I have a photographer that goes and takes I have a photographer that goes and takes pictures for me of the houses, and I retain the rights to those images. And so if I sell a house and then Zillow continues to use those images, I could also sue for copyright infringement because I own the rights to those. So you guys should check your rights. It may be just something to throw in on, Rio. I don't know. It's kind of giving me some ideas actually now that I'm thinking about it. And if you don't protect those rights, you can't go get them later, so you have to do something. If you want to maintain those rights, you have to do something. Here's the actual complaint. It's on the Broke Agent Media, so you guys can see it. Displayed on over 250,000 times. What does that mean? Does that mean the number of views? I guess so, because it's 47,000 images, 250,000 times. I feel like that number should be higher, but maybe Zillow's not what it once was. All right, so the complaint goes into who CoStar is and all that jazz. Zillow Group real estate audience share in the average active app users. I think for us as real estate agents, one of the most, we're not a giant corporation like CoStar or anything. Well, most of us listening are. There may be a couple of giant corporations listening. I don't want to shortchange the audience. But I think for most of us, we look at stuff like this and say, well, how does this apply? If they're using the picture of your seller's house or your buyer's home, for instance, to market towards that buyer to not use you, would that be significant? In my opinion, that would be. If it's a copywritten photo that they're using in order to market to my buyer, to tell my buyer, hey, don't use a real estate agent, just put your home directly on our website. Because they are emailing your clients right now, telling them that. If your clients have ever looked on Zillow for anything, that is in their email. So, I mean, they're basically using your own intellectual property against you, against us as agents. That's a bit annoying. All right. Anyone want to chime in? Are you guys going to go after your intellectual property?
Yeah.
Yes? I want to see it. Matt. What's up, Matt?
Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. Thanks for joining the show. You're late, but I appreciate you being here.
hey, 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 hey.
Hit that bell, Matt. Hit that bell. So you can be notified of other great shows just like this one.
The bell's not the issue here, okay?
I don't really.
Unlike
I mean, I was
Canadian-
late. I was late to my own show today, and then when I started my show, I didn't even have audio. So there's that.
Well, you know, I'm not an appraiser. I'm not a Canadian. I'm like actually trying to keep the wheels of this economy rolling.
For real.
Me and Trump, apparently the only ones out here.
I mean, you actually have construction work to do. Where Olivier was telling us in the pre-show that all the construction people are on vacation in Canada. It's a construction holiday. I had no idea that was a thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
See?
Interesting. That would never fly in America.
No. No. All right. Well, I'm curious to see what shakes out. I mean, $1 billion lawsuit, a lot of money. I didn't think it was going to be that much. I feel like they'll probably settle out of court and so just remove the photos. Obviously, they can't have copywritten photos on their website. And they've already lost this to VHT. So they have, I mean, I'm not an attorney, but it doesn't seem like they have a chance to beat CoStar at this. But I have to wonder though, if CoStar set this trap intentionally, if CoStar is like, here's what we're going to do. But how did they get, I guess the question, the only way Zillow could win is if CoStar somehow fed those images to Zillow through something. So how did they get to Zillow? That would be my question, because I don't think Zillow, maybe I could be wrong, but I don't think Zillow had their intern going to CoStar's website, taking the images off and then putting it onto Zillow. But I could be wrong. They may have done that. There could have been a plethora of the Zillow interns doing that. What's up, Greg? Greg over on Facebook says, hey, Ray, good stuff. Nick Tiger Quay, what's up, buddy? He said, loss of potential ad revenue, possibly. Okay, that's true. Christina M. Smallhorn is here. What's up, Christina? Yo, yo, yo. Greg says, sue for the stars and maybe they'll get the moon. Wait, I think you're supposed to sue for the moon and end up among the stars. But I like that. Sue for the stars and maybe you'll get the moon. It's not bad. Well, you could get the sun. Tiger says, Zillow basically abuses the IP rights of others anyway. It sucks. Puts us all in potential trouble with that. Yeah. Olivier.
But do you bite the hand that feeds you? Is the, you know, why would you sue Zillow? And then Zillow says, okay, we won't share any of your information then.
I mean, that's what CoStar's doing. You know, homes.com is CoStar. So
yeah, well, they may have a bigger plan. They obviously have a bigger plan, but
yeah,
you know.
Brian _ Hershey, HIRSHY, not the chocolate, is over on Instagram, says, this again? Yes, sir. We're back. And it is another lawsuit on Zillow. Yes. Olivier said our economy is doing just fine, Matt. Despite the construction holiday, they're doing okay. And apparently, despite the massive tariffs all the Canadians were griping about earlier, they're fine. So cheers to you guys. Let's all make money.
Whatever. They're just putting extra maple syrup on everything.
Yeah, they just put a little dollop of maple syrup on it, and it's all fine. Do a dollop. All right. I mean, I agree, Jack. I mean, for a real estate agent to say, hey, I'm going to sue you for using my images, I didn't give you permission to leave those images on there like that. And then Zillow says, fine, we'll never use your images. You're gone. I don't think they can do that. I feel like that's a retaliatory event that's happening. I don't know. That seems like that wouldn't work well. But it could be wrong. But agents,
it wouldn't work well. But what are you looking for in damages if you're complaining about it?
Yeah, I mean, how is it damaging you if they're continuing to use your photos after the property sells?
Or maybe I phrased that wrong. What are you looking for an award?
Yeah, injunctive relief, like don't do it again, would be the thing.
Then, yeah.
I think they used to remove the images of photos after the property sold. Didn't they do that?
Yeah,
Do they still do that or
but
no?
you could, only because I just had this happen today, you could have a potential buyer call you as a listing agent for one of your properties that's recently sold or under contract or whatever. That they call you and they say, well, we were going to offer, $50,000 more than you were asking. So you could technically say the difference in compensation from one price to another would be your quote unquote damages if they're still using those photos.
That's
If you
interesting.
can, if you had a legitimate offer, they're at an arm's length, of course.
Yeah.
You could easily make that argument. I know a couple of attorneys that would take that.
Yeah.
You crushed your whole argument by saying that I know a couple of attorneys that would take that case. It seems like a reach.
Yeah.
Well, of course,
I know an attorney that would
everything
take the
is.
case because you're going to have to pay them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course. On contingency
I know
only.
a realtor that will list that house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Olivier says, how many websites steal the listings and post them on another site? I mean, there's no way to quantify damages. That's my Olivier impression. Yeah, coming up with damages is tough. And what are the damages of them stealing your intellectual property? I guess you could use the math from the VHT lawsuit that they lost. You could use that math and say, well, based on the number of photos that are still on the site that shouldn't be on the site that I have legal rights to. But I also have to wonder, like, what's that end user license agreement? Anyone read that lately? Because, when they say, hey, if you put your house on our website, this is what you agree to. But you know what? If it's being fed from the MLS, then are you agreeing to their end user license agreement? I would say probably not. Your MLS is. And then what is that agreement on intellectual property rights for your photos? I don't know. Like, I don't know how that works. We need an actual IP attorney to chime in. So if you know an IP attorney, shoot this video to them. I would love to talk to them about this to see, like, what are the rights that people have. And does anyone know Zillow's current policy or off-market properties? Are the photos coming off? I don't know the rules.
I just think photos accumulate on an individual address, unless you go in and call out old pictures and take ownership of that property.
Yeah,
which you can.
I don't even know how to find a property that's not. Oh, okay. Sold properties apply. So these are not Google Street View. They are. So I'm looking in my market at sold properties, and they have my MLS watermark at the bottom. So that's interesting. There's no agent watermark. That's the MLS watermark. So I guess they have probably a deal with the MLS to keep the sold properties on the website. There's a couple of sold homes that no, those are just bad photos. I thought for a minute they had taken them off and it was a bad, like, Street View, but no, that was just a terrible real estate agent photo. Come on, guys, step it up. Yeah, I mean, in our area, you could go to Zillow, look at an area, and then hit the sold drop down, and then you could see what they're doing in your area as far as sold properties go. If they're keeping the properties, if they're keeping the images on there or not. So I don't know. I like to leave images in the MLS for appraisers. So I don't want to say no and take them off, because then appraisers are like, hey, dude, why do you keep removing all your photos? And it's also harder for other real estate agents to compare. But I also don't necessarily want my buyers' photos or sellers' photos to live online forever. That's interesting. Okay. The article is also on Inman. So if you have an Inman subscription, they have the same article there. It's pretty much the same take, in same images also. Compass, though.
So then, Ray, you'd have to leave them
What's up,
on
Terry?
a year. If appraisers can go back a year, you'd have to leave them on a year.
Okay. Move them after the year.
Yeah.
And then appraisers can use it, because if it's any longer than a year, why would they still be on there? That's a good question.
Yeah.
because we still use comps past a year. It's not, there's no rule of thumb that says you have to be within a year. I'm using one right now. I'm using comps from 2 years ago. So,
Wow.
I mean,
Unbelievable.
if you can at least leave them there, great. I mean, if they wanted you to take them off, fine. It just stinks that way. But I mean, at least if anything, to leave at least what the, maybe the front of the house, the back of the house, looks like or anything. I mean, that helps, but you still want to see the interior of it. But it just depends on the market. If it's a hot market, obviously, and you have lots of comps out there that are going crazy, then yeah, you could probably take them off after a year. But in the market that we're currently in, with so many actives and not a lot of sales, you might have to, appraisers may have to go back 2 years, sometimes even 3 years. It just depends.
Clint Peters, living in North Alabama, says we're required to leave images on the MLS even after the sale. Interesting. Eureka C says in our area, listing agents can hide photos at COE. At COE? What's COE?
Close of escrow. Scap, I don't really like the underhanded tone that you just alluded to. There are agents that are overpricing properties right now, and that's why we have so much inventory. Did I catch that correctly?
No, I did not say that. Why you got to be causing trouble? You know what? I think it's time we get out the golf course and settle this once and for all.
All right, I'll put my spoon down, but I'm still going to stir the pot every once in a while. It sounded very accusatory, if I'm being honest.
Eureka C says close of escrow. Thank you. Olivier says, imagine removing all the images from the MLS after the sale and how the comps would be affected. Yeah, that's. I see that there are some high-end properties that they are removing them and they're just leaving like one outside front photo. And I call the agents and ask them to send me the old photos. I call the listing agent that sold it. And I said, hey, I'm just doing a comparison. Brian Hershey said, firefight at the golf course. Live stream that, please. Is there really a firefight at the golf course? What are you talking about? I'll look it up. Eureka said, I always write into my offers that the listing agent will hide photos at close of escrow at the request of the buyer for privacy reasons. Yes. I think high-end properties, it's probably more common. And those are hard to comp anyway. Olivier said, Scap versus Matt on a golf course. Loser ends up in the lake. That would be I would live stream that firefight at the golf course.
All right, I'll get my videographer on it.
Sarah Layton, real estate writer, content marketing strategist over on LinkedIn. What's up? She said, I was actually noticing some differences in different markets last week as I was updating my portfolio of listing descriptions. Okay. Some are gone, but then I had others in the South are all there. Huh. Interesting. The South is hanging on to it. The descriptions could be helpful for appraisers, talking about what's updated, the new roof, new HVAC, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we're kind of reverting to a world in which the data is kept closer and less public, which I know the public doesn't like. But what we're also seeing is I can't think of another word. A bastardization of the data by companies like Zillow that are taking this and saying, hey, your home's worth $400,000 when in actuality it's worth 500, or in actuality it's worth 350 or 300. And so they're taking this data and putting it out there and making assumptions based on this data that because there is no professionalism, it's wrong. It's way wrong. And so it's not helping. That doesn't help the public for someone to say your home is $100,000 off of what it actually would sell for. How does that help the public? Taking the data, and for a professional and like an appraiser or real estate agent being able to calculate comparisons, that's helpful, but we don't need Zillow for that. We could just have it on the private real estate agent listing network, right? I mean, why does that have to remain public? And in Canada, correct me if I'm wrong, Olivier, but y'all don't have that stuff publicly available, right? Don't y'all? Isn't it pretty privatized there, where it's not? People don't have access to the sold data like we have in the U.S. And
No, we don't have access to the listings if you're a consumer. But on our in our database in the MLS, we probably have 15 years back of listings and sold and expired and everything with all the pictures on it. Nobody takes them out. I mean, privacy reasons. I mean, unless you have a Picasso in the house, who cares what stoves you have or whatever? I don't see in 90% of the cases or 95% of the cases what is so private about pictures of a bedroom or something like that in a house.
Well, some people just don't want the stuff online. I mean, if you're high end, I can understand, but even mid range, so I don't want to make the argument like don't have pictures on or do have pictures on, and then the answer be, well, high end. I can understand high end stuff. Let's look at the regular home. Olivier, to play devil's advocate, let's say you have somebody that's a predator that wants to do something to the people in this house. They can go on Zillow and get a pretty good idea of the layout of the home. They can look at the floor plans on some of the websites, and they can use that data to improve their strategy of robbing the place or committing offenses to those people. So I think there are privacy concerns, just general privacy concerns for buyers who are buying a house, and then that house has been plastered all over the internet. So I like the privacy that Canada has, and I love that y'all have that on the MLS, 15 years of data. That's awesome. I think ours gets wiped after like 5 or 6 years. But yeah, I could definitely understand the privacy concerns of any consumer. I mean, you don't ever know who's the target of whatever attack. We assume high end. Oh yeah, high end. Yeah. But I think it could apply for everybody. And this number, I don't know how to. I'm just going to block them. But I don't know why they keep calling like that.
I see, Ray. What you're saying, people will put online pictures when they're on vacation. They'll give out their credit card numbers to everybody.
Yeah, but that's their choice.
Yeah, but they're still doing it. I mean, they're saying privacy, but they're not even doing the basic stuff for themselves. But I can understand not having it accessible to the public, but it should be accessible to the agent.
Professionals, yeah.
Not in perpetuity, but for like 10 years or something.
I like that. Eureka said, if an agent does not write it into their offer, we push back on the request for marketing reasons. Okay. Christina Smallhorn says, even the buyers ask me to remove pics now. It's a pretty common. Yep. Stalkers. Yeah. She just went right. Stalkers look at photos to case the place. I can see why buyers want them off. The difference, Olivier, and I agree with you. Like there's a trade for privacy and convenience. That's the trade that everyone makes, and also social media. But even that's a trade for privacy and convenience. Back in the day, we would send photos to people. I remember sending photos for my summers to my grandparents and that kind of stuff. So back in the day, you used to print and send a photo. So now we exchange that privacy for convenience. I'm going to post it online, and some people have private locked accounts. Some people don't, whatever, but whoever I want to share that with, I'm now going to post it online and it's shared with everyone I want to share it with. It's more convenient. We exchange privacy and convenience for having a Gmail account. Anyone that has a Gmail account, Google is reading all your emails and then advertising to you based on the emails you receive. And there's an exchange of convenience, free email account, and I can check it anywhere. It's so nice and easy to set up. For privacy, they're in your email reading it all and marketing to you. I think I should say allegedly. I'm pretty sure that's common. That's why it's free. So there's that exchange of privacy and convenience, but that's my choice. I'm choosing to use those services. A home buyer doesn't choose to have the inside of the home plastered on the internet. So as a home buyer, I would be making that request. And, people are like, well, Google Street View, you can at least look at the Google Street View. You as a homeowner or property owner can request not to be shown on Street View, and it will blur your home and property. I've had a couple of people moving to DC right now for reasons. And if you were to look up their property on the internet, you can't even see the house, just a blur. I think you can see satellite view But other than that, like you can't get a street view of their house or anything because of their job. They blocked it. So you can get that stuff removed from most of the websites. And I guess you could probably petition Zillow or realtor.com or homes.com, whoever has that photo on there, and ask them to take it down. I bet they would. But yeah, it's interesting. Who owns the photos once you buy a home? Does the home buyer own the photos because they bought the house? Does the agent own the photos because they paid for the photos? Does the photographer still retain the rights to the photos? Because some do. Sarah Layton said, I was just going to say women who have escaped dangerous relationships don't want that info out there. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. When you have that, maybe that's just something to kind of put into your consultation and put into your information. If you want us to try to get the photos removed once you purchase the home, here's the process to do it. It would probably be wise to have that somewhere. Oh, sorry, guys. Instagram just updated the, yeah, I can think of a dozen reasons, especially if you're ever been a divorce, says Brian Hershey, because they're not secure area doesn't mean you punt on all the rest. Yeah. It's probably a good practice just to add that to your stuff. If you want the photos removed, here's how to get them removed. Or as your agent, I'll request that they be removed, and here's how and why. But I feel like they should be included in the MLS. I mean, you should be able to put them there and not have them all over the internet. So I'm going to ask my MLS that. Oh, I did a training yesterday on some AI stuff. And for those of you that were on that training, one of the things I said was I exported a whole bunch of data. And in the data, I had these codes for subdivisions. And shout out to my MLS, because I sent them an email and said, hey, when I export this data, it just gives me the codes for subdivisions. Can you make it just display the name of the subdivision? And by this morning, they fixed it. They said, yeah, we'll do that. That's pretty good. I was impressed that I didn't get wrapped up in like 2 weeks of support emails. Brian Hershey said, technically the copyright holder, which is the picture taker, owns the photo, but there's often a perpetual worldwide usage rights transfer. Yes, Brian, my photographer transfers the rights to me because I pay for them. And then I own it. But then where do my rights end as the owner of the photo? Do they end when the buyer buys it? Do they end when my usage ends? Do they end when I put them in the MLS? Is there an agreement, some kind of ownership agreement that the MLS has over those photos? It's good questions. It's interesting. What's up, Iris? Are you coming up here to talk about this? Come on.
Audio is much better up.
Oh, audio is much better up top? Yeah, it's true.
And I'm driving, so there's
okay. No, interesting conversation. Let's go to the next. I think this is also going to be an interesting conversation, and then we'll get pretty quickly into the market data. That was more of a discussion than I thought it would be, honestly, but it came down to usage rights. Who owns our stuff? Compass. Are they pushing their agents into the 3-phase plan? I think it was last week or the week before we read an op-ed by Leo Pereira, the EXP CEO, president. Yeah, something like that. And he was talking about Compass using their 3-phase strategy and an email that they had that Leo had from some broker that worked with Compass saying to his agent, hey, I noticed you weren't using the 3-phase strategy. I'd appreciate if you would use the 3-phase strategy. 3-phase strategy is cool. It gives more exposure to your clients. Can you commit to do that on your next listing? Here's what we want to do, how we want to operate. We talked a little bit about why that 3-phase strategy may be important, because we talked to Andy. I think it was Andy that was talking about visiting a Compass office and trying to see the book. Or maybe was it you, Matt, or was it was either Andy or Matt? And how they went to the office and the book, there was nothing in the book. And so they were like,
it was Matt.
It was Matt. Okay. Oh yeah. He's on the phone. Yeah. So he went to the Compass office and there was nothing in the book because Compass didn't have any private exclusive listings in that office. So maybe that's why the brokerages were like, hey, we want to have a couple of listings in our book. Use that strategy first. And this came to light in the Broke Agent Media interview that Byron Lazine did with Roy. But that broker is no longer working with Compass. So they didn't say like, we didn't tell. Well, I guess he did in the interview with Byron. I guess he did say we didn't tell the brokers to do that. They operate independently, 300 brokers. He did say they operate independently. They have 300 brokers around the country. He didn't say why the guy was let go or if the guy just moved or what, but the broker no longer works with the company. And so he's like, yeah, that's not our policy. We don't send those emails. Agents are independent contractors and they have to make the decision for themselves of what process to use. But he also didn't back down or shy away from promoting the 3-phase marketing strategy that they've been talking about. And there were a couple of things to note in this interview. I will see if I can play just a couple of clips from the interview with Byron Lazine and Rory Gold, and then we'll react to those. So I got to change. Let's see, share this tab instead. We'll do this, make it big screen. All right, if you guys can't hear it, pop in the comments that you can't hear it, but I think you'll be able to hear this.
Fine by the rules. So in many ways, I think it actually is a great example of how.
Oh, wait, you just got insight into how I watch videos. I definitely watch it at 2x.
That was awesome.
I watch everything at 2x. Hang on. I'll back that up a little bit. All right, so there's two main clips that I want to play that just kind of talks about the strategy and what they're doing with it. Here it goes.
Fine by the rules. So in many ways, I think it actually is a great example of how ridiculous some of these rules are. The concept of the book was very simple. People were accusing Compass of just trying to hoard inventory, of not being transparent, of just trying to double end deals and just keeping all these listings for ourselves, which is not the case. It's not ever been the intention of the strategy. And so we're looking at the rules, and the rules say, Clear Cooperation says you can't share inventory that's not in the MLS.
This is exactly what we've been talking about on our show.
Fashion. If we could, we would share all the private exclusives we have with other brokerages. And we put out something last week where Robert said, I will share our private exclusives with any company that agrees not to alter the listings, monetize the listings. And so
this is exactly what we were talking about last week and the week before and the week before and the week before. The current clear cooperation rules do not allow him to share the listings with other agents, and that is their goal. That's what they want to do. They just don't want to share it with companies that are going to alter the listing or try to monetize the listing. And later in the video, I wish these points were mashed together because it would make more sense. But later in the video, Rory talks about, putting content on YouTube, or maybe Byron was the one that brought it up. And Byron was like, well, yeah, but we put all of our content on YouTube and this is what we do. And YouTube's the place. No one else goes to any other thing. There's a couple of other logos, but no one really watches those other things. Everyone goes to YouTube. And Roy makes a really good point. He said, well, it would be different if Zillow compensated agents for the content. He said, currently, if you upload something to YouTube, you monetize that content. And if it gets views or clicks or whatnot, YouTube pays the creator. And that's a very different scenario than a real estate agent uploading the content and then Zillow selling it to someone else. And so he brought up the point, it would be like Byron and Broke Agent Media uploading all of their content and YouTube saying, we're not going to pay you. Instead, we're going to thank you for your content and then sell it to other people. And you're not going to get anything for it because you're driving the clicks and you're driving the people to the website. You don't get anything for it. I thought that was a really interesting point. Let me see if there's anything else in this little segment here.
So we would love to do that. In Chicago right now, MRED, the MLS in Chicago, they have a private exclusive network where all the brokerages put their private exclusives into the MLS and they're shared among all firms. If the MRED system was national, we'd be very happy. We would love that.
And that's the first I've heard of this. So what I thought they were trying to do was to be able to put those listings on their website and not put it anywhere else. But what he just said was if all of the MLSs had the private listing network, then they would be fine just sharing their listings to the private listing network so the brokers know about these properties that they have, but there's no comment on putting those same listings on their own website. And maybe they're just going to start taking it in steps. But from what I understand, in the private listing networks that are there, the agent can't take that listing, or the brokerage can't then take that listing and put it on their own website. They have to, if they put it on their own website, then make it public. So take it from the private exclusive to a public network, and then other brokerages and Zillow can put that on their website.
The rules, though, don't allow that. So when we looked at the rules say you can share a private exclusive with an agent and other firm 1-to-1. And
so that's what the book was. Let me go to the next one.
Compasses rules.
So Byron asked the question. Let me get his full question. He's basically saying, why shouldn't you follow their rules? Why do you want to do Compass's rules?
10-minute fireside on a stage where.
Well, he's also, this is smooth, but I hope he gets him. But he was like, yeah, we want Robert Refkin on these too. He should be doing these interviews. And he's like, this is the style that you guys should talk about. Anyway,
you can't, that's been one of my criticisms of NAR. I think Nakia Wright's doing better on those. She's starting to get more information.
He's trying to get the interview with Robert,
giving much,
which I hope he gets
answers. And so long form discussions like this is how we get somewhere.
Yeah.
So I'm really appreciative of your time. All right.
Of course.
So I guess we'll start with last week's, the Compass private listings to all, but with the 2 rules.
Yeah.
And so why should everybody else adopt Compass's rules as opposed to Compass playing with the rules that exist?
Those 2 conditions aren't so much rules.
It's a good question.
Are ones that we created. It's more so based on the premise of, if we're going to share inventory, the ask is that inventory is shared for the betterment of the seller and the agent, right? Which is to share the inventory, not to give it to someone to monetize it. And then the person who shared it, being the agent, doesn't get anything for it. Not to take that inventory and alter it to try to use it as a lead gen source or something like that. And so there's a ton of examples around the country where people are sharing exclusive listings, all private listing networks, right? PLN, the MRED example, Austin, Texas. So there's examples of where that works right now throughout the country. The Zillow ban is trying to shut those down. We're just saying, why not adopt what works in a number of major American cities? And the conditions they have is you share that inventory and it's not altered and it's not monetized.
Okay. So if it's not.
So one of my follow-up questions there is, he said the Zillow ban is trying to alter it, but maybe he
monetized. It doesn't end up on.
Maybe
Zillow,
he brings this up.
End up on Realtor.com. What's the point?
The point is just to get more exposure for the private exclusive inventory among the brokerage community, which if you really.
Yeah. And Olivier said a private listing network, like an MLS, is not accessible to the public, but when 1,000 agents know about it, it's not exclusive anymore. That's true, but it should only be, you should only have people that are actually interested in property that are going to know about it, right? I mean, you should have agents, appraisers, and then people that are looking for homes that those agents represent. They're the ones that are going to know about it. And then, of course, it'll get out from there, but it's still more private than plastering it on Zillow, I think.
Well, Refkin has said several times that one of his biggest beefs about putting it in MLS is that it starts accumulating days on market, and that's published. And so that's.
I honestly think
that's what's driving it all.
I think that's one of his worst arguments, to be honest. If it's in the MLS, it's on the market, so you should be accumulating days on market. I don't really care one way or another if the public has that information or not. If they're represented by an agent should be able to tell them, well, here's the days on market. Here's what's going on with this property. I think that is the worst part of the argument, is that, well, the sellers don't want their days on market out there. Well, too bad. If you're listing a house, that's part of the data that can be traced and tracked now. I don't understand that side of his argument.
And the other argument is that you get to market test it within a select group of people to see how the market will react to pricing, but in turn, are you necessarily doing that, exposing it to the market? But bigger question is why does NAR get to make these rules? I mean, shouldn't consumer protection be enough?
Well, even consumer protection can be debated in both of these cases. So yeah.
Yeah, but this is just in general. Well, why does our trade organization get to make these hard and fast rules? I mean, I'm MLS PIN, so not connected to an MLS that's connected to NAR, but we're still, influenced by it and brought into it.
Yeah.
As a trade. So why do they get to do that?
They actually have a good discussion about that, and it's one that we've had on this show too. But I put the link to this in the comments. It says something like React link or whatever, and it's got the title "The Real Fight Behind Zillow Ban." So I put that in the comments. They do talk about NAR affiliation. Byron's like, why not just leave NAR? And that was a good point. But he kind of talks about why they're forced to do that around the country because they can't get into the MLS and all that jazz. But yeah, they kind of go into that a little bit. Let me play one more clip. I think in this clip, he talks about what the MLS is. That's the one I'm looking for.
Really think about what is an MLS. Let's go back
perfect.
in time.
Look at that. I mean,
MLS originally was a mechanism to share listings among agents.
Yes.
That weren't seen in any other place.
Think about that. The MLS originally was a mechanism to share listings among agents that weren't seen anywhere else. Now, technically, that was because there wasn't the ability to share them anywhere else. There was no online. So once there was an online, it was like message boards and stuff. And then they came up with this MLS, which is all between the professionals can share these properties among professionals. And that is the original intent. There used to be books and stuff like that at offices, the old MLS books, which everyone made fun when Zillow did the book. Oh, I like his shoes there. Sorry, I was distracted. There are the old MLS books that people were using to put properties, quote unquote, on the market, off the market, that kind of stuff. But the MLS was the electronification of all those books, the digitization of all those listing books. And it was never really supposed to go outside of that. But it wasn't created to keep it from going outside of that. It wasn't like, hey, we're going to create this private network that's just for us. I don't think it was ever originally intended to keep everyone out. Though, as more and more public data started to come out, you had a bunch of more experienced real estate agents saying, we can't let the data out. We can't let the data out. We can't let the public have this data. And the pendulum always swings, and it feels like the pendulum is starting to swing the other way when they're saying, yeah, I mean, all this data being out there is not really benefiting the public in a lot of ways. So I don't know. Interesting take in how he says it. It is a way of looking at it. I think there's two ways of looking at that, though. One is it wasn't really possible at the time to share it with everyone. But the second way is, yeah, I mean, it was a private network for real estate agents only.
And somewhere along the way,
share all listings.
Share all listings and listings that weren't yet on the market.
Yep.
And somewhere along the way, the MLSs and NAR lost their way. And now the MLS looks nothing like the original intention of it. Now it is a monopoly, a monetization strategy. They take inventory from content creators, effectively agents. They use that inventory to sell off to third parties. They monetize it. The content creator, the agent, and really effectively the homeowner never see anything from it. And now, as we've seen the last couple of years, now rules and structures and fines and bans, all these things are being put in place. And they're going to the people who are the content creators, the agents, and saying, give us all your info. Oh, and by the way, we're going to put all these draconian rules in place, which don't actually help you. And so
that's a great point.
Our contention is more so, why can't brokerages share private, exclusive, and off-market listings with each other before they go to the market?
Boom. That's it. Why can't they? This is a really great interview. Byron does a good job. I can also tell that throughout this interview, Byron tries to play devil's advocate, but I feel like sometimes he has a hard time because he's kind of agreeing with what the guy's saying. All the comments are agreeing with what Rory's saying, which when another creator, I think, interviewed him, the comments were pretty mixed. But most of the comments are agreeing with him, saying, yeah, he's exactly right, including I commented on it too, including us. So go check that out. It's on. I don't know if you guys have subscribed to the Broke Agent Media channel, but they've got good stuff on there. They got the walkthrough with Jason Cassidy and some characters like that. But yeah, this is a good interview, and they have the full breakdown. I'll share this too, so you guys could see. They have the full breakdown on there of the timestamps. So here's everything they talk about in the interview: the 3-phase marketing plan, Zillow being a monopoly or just a brand, UK and Australia markets and how they compare, what would be a better model for the US. So really interesting discussion. Y'all go check that out. It's like an hour and 20 minutes long. Go ahead, Jack.
Ray, I know I shared a link to you. Some really cool insight into Compass is listening to Mike Del Preti's podcast when he had Rory Gollad on, who's the president of Growth and Communications.
Yeah.
And they have a listing strategy, and that's, I'm sure this is a byproduct of it. But it's a really cool perspective in general, just if you're paying at all attention to this stuff.
Yeah, he's that's the same guy that was talking just now. I know you can't see it because you're on Clubhouse, Jack, but that's that guy. He's a pretty good communicator about it. Byron also made the point several times, like, I wish Robert was here. Talking about how active Robert was on Instagram. Keller Williams.
And then Mike just sent out some really interesting stats about the companies that are doing business differently and how they're dominating the market.
Yeah.
And I think it was an email earlier this week.
Yeah. Yeah. Byron asked him about the agents that are with Compass that use Zillow. And Roy's like, yeah, we fully support that. Use Zillow. If you want to use Zillow, use Zillow. And he's basically just saying we want more options, not less options. We're trying to open more options for the seller, more options for the agent to market these properties, not less. Why would our hands be tied to offer more options? Why? I can't, you guys know my stance on it. Everyone that's saying, well, Compass is trying to double into deals and keep listings for themselves. That is a carve out from the clear cooperation policy that is currently allowed. So yeah, they could do that now, but because they're trying to share it with everyone, that's what's getting them in trouble. Or they're trying to share it with other agents. So I think when the dust settles, you're going to see companies like EXP and Next Home and these big cats that have been out there talking against Compass really change their tune. And I would be shocked if they don't even have to go so far as to apologize and say, we misunderstood what you were trying to do. We support that now. Because I think there was just a lack of understanding. Maybe they didn't look into it. I know they're busy, but I really, I really feel like if they looked into it, they would say, oh, okay. Yeah, the clear cooperation actually allows for them to double in deals, but they're trying to do is share it with us. But we'll see. Keller Williams chimes in on it finally. They've been relatively quiet lately. I don't remember any comments by Gary. I don't remember him coming out and saying anything for it or against Compass. Maybe one of you guys can correct me if I'm wrong there. But their new CEO says private listings should be a local decision. So I'm going to go down. This is a full interview that Inman has with him. And they kind of do the intro stuff like, what surprised you about your role and all that kind of jazz. Then they talk about the hot topics. Okay, Compass and Zillow. His response to this question about the debate, what are your thoughts on this? I think we've been, and Gary Keller has been very thoughtful on this. We have 800 plus market centers and brokerages that view this as an individual decision that they're making in their own markets and doing what they think is best for their clients. For us, we've tried and continue to be educational force to arm agents with what we see and what comes in. It's always hard translating. It probably made much more sense when it was said out loud. But ultimately, this is a local decision for those 800 plus brokerages and market centers on a franchise basis. We've advocated for them to make the decisions on a local level and talk to their local boards about what they think is important for their clients in cities and towns. So that's an interesting take. Normally, Gary comes out pretty strongly, one way or the other. historically, I'm going to put it out there. He comes out against Zillow and then continues to take their money for booths at his conferences and tells his agents to go use them. But they have this, it should be your listing. You should be, but that he supports them in one stance. So I think he may also be confused on it because they're not coming out and taking a clear stance. They're just saying like it's a local issue. Yeah, kind of. But you could also have a stance publicly that is kind of the rudder guiding your ship. But no, they're not taking a public stance. To be fair, I haven't heard Real Brokerage take a public stance on this either. So they may be in that same vein. I wish they would take a stance. I wish they would take a stance similar to what Compass is doing and start a private listing network, to be honest, because, if EXP has a private listing network and then comes out against private listing networks, I don't see why we can't have a private listing network and come out in support of them. Olivier said, like I said before, agents should own their MLS like we have in Province. Yeah. Anthony, what's up, Anthony? Anthony Malfonte says, when did the MLSs lose their way? That's a good question. I don't know, the history on this, but let's go with 2003.
Even the book was coveted and it had a disclaimer. I'm going back. I was there, man. I was there, people. It had a big disclaimer on the front cover that said, "Do not share."
Yeah.
This is, sit on, sleep with it at night. Don't share it with the consumer. And we used to make copies and send them out to people. It was crazy. But I don't know that they've ever found their way. I don't know that NAR has ever found their way as a trade organization, or who do they represent? I don't know.
Christina Smallhorn said 2005. I predicted 2003. She said 2005. That's when they lost their way. Anthony said maybe when we sold our souls to Zillow. Yeah. I don't know when that partnership was. Probably, let's see. Let me see if something. News Corp acquired Move Inc., taking ownership of Realtor.com in 2014. 1999, Move Inc. was formed and later became the parent company of Realtor.com. So when did NAR sell the domain?
We lost Realtor.com a long time ago, long before 2014.
Yeah, when did NAR
It's like 90s, I think.
Realtor.com. Well, it's just, it keeps talking about News Corp in 2014, but that can't be right.
No, I want to say it was 2013 or 14.
Was it? It seems like so far away. But I guess that was 10 years ago. Go look at pictures of you 10 years ago and you'll be like, yeah, it was 2014.
No, they gave up Realtor.com and then the internet took off. And they were like, oh, what did we just do? So it was like 90s for sure.
Realtor.com.
It wasn't 10 years ago.
Let's see. In 1996, project had run out of money. Okay. Realtor.com is the official listing site of 1.5 million National Association of Realtors. The site was born in 1994 from controversial NAR project and a for-profit subsidiary, Realtor Information Network, RIN, which was a computer network that promised to link realtors to promote home listings around the World Wide Web. But by 1996, the project had run out of money and, teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, went in search of a deep-pocketed technology partner who would be able to make the site competitive. RIN found partners, and together they formed a joint venture called Real Select, partly owned by NAR. In 1999, Real Select went public, changed the name to homestore.com. Is this flashbacks for any of you guys? With Real Select a subsidiary in 2001, Homestore bought a site called move.com from Realogy predecessor Cendant after a financial scandal that was former Homestore executives convicted in securities fraud head to prison. Homestore changed its name to Move Inc. So Move Inc. operates Realtor.com under the terms of the 1996 operating agreement between RIN and Real Select that has been renegotiated multiple times since then. Under that agreement, NAR does not pay Move anything to operate the site On the contrary, Move pays NAR about $2 million in royalties annually. Only $2 million. Wow. So technically, who owns the domain? The agreement.
I think we own the domain, but we've licensed it out for forever.
So it wasn't
We
ever.
sold our soul.
It wasn't in the beginning. It wasn't a clean. It appears that it wasn't a clean purchase, which that's interesting. I thought there would be like a day where they went from NAR to boom, they sold out. But it looks like from the beginning, it was kind of a mix of NAR and private companies, privatization. Huh. Well, there you have it. That's on Inman's website, that history. I didn't know that. Okay. We have a little more to cover, and we're already, I thought it was only going to be an hour show, but we're already over. So, but that's all the tea. So let's talk about what's happening in the economy. Well, first, what's up, Christina? She said, I remember when Zillow hit Florida clearly. What do you mean? Agents in Central Florida were losing it when the pictures were all over the internet. Oh, you mean when they like opened up in Florida? Oh, see? Pictures being all over the internet, that causes issues. Interesting. Okay. Let's talk about the econ. U.S. asking prices post smallest increase in nearly 2 years as home sellers adjust to the buyer's market. Is it a buyer's market in your market? Drop it in the comments. It is a, it's like 4 months-ish of supply, but you know, in a lot of areas that's still the seller's market or maybe balanced. In our area, that is 4 months of supply is a buyer's market. So people right now are able to get, they're able to get concessions from sellers. So especially if they put in a ask price offer, they'll get everything, like closing costs, everything. Anthony said very much so. Yeah. The median U.S. asking price is $403,000, up just 2.2% year over year. That's the smallest increase in nearly 2 years. And I think that's to be expected. You know, when the home prices have this hockey stick graph upward, then, you know, for it to levelize a little bit, that seems like it logical, right? Christina said, not a buyer's market here, but close, very close. Sale price growth is losing steam too, although the median sale price hit a record high during the 4 weeks ending July 20th. It's up just 1.6% year over year compared to 5 and 6% growth throughout most of 2024 and 2025 and the start of 2025. The median monthly mortgage payments, $2,679. That's the lowest level in nearly 5 months. Housing payments are coming down from their peak because price growth is slowing. So, and again, we say price growth is slowing. We're looking at the median asking price. That could just tell us that more homes on the bottom end of the market are selling versus homes in the top end. And that is also the case here locally. We have far more transactions happening in the lower end of the market versus what's happening in the luxury market. We have a huge glut of supply, and it's pretty stagnant. But the lower end of the market is selling at a pretty good pace. I wouldn't say fast. It's just going at kind of what it went maybe last year, maybe a little bit slower. But the top end of the market's not moving at all right now. So that shifts the median. That shifts the home sold in the middle, the average price of the home sold in the middle, or the price of the home sold in the middle.
What is your top end?
In our area
range?
If you're in like 600 and 700, you're pretty much in luxury. I would say 700 plus is luxury here. You could argue that in some places in our like 650 in some of the smaller towns around the areas, you get a really nice house for 650. I mean, like 4,000 or 5,000 square feet. Really nice on an estate. So you could also pay like $2 million for something that in LA would go for 30 million.
Yeah, in a world that goes from 600,000 to 8 or 10 million, the people with a lot of money are still there waiting for stuff. The people, the first-time home buyers are still there because there are a lot of people with a lot of jobs that are making good money. It's the middle of the market where the aspirational move up is not moving at all. So I think we're going to see those. I think we're going to see slow pockets, But I still think that there's enough demand out there that's going to keep, not allow us to not go into a true buyer's market across the board.
Yeah. Steve Harney of KCM used to say in markets like this that if the price was not compelling, the home was not selling. And that's the market that we're in again. That's the market that we were in 2019 and 2018 before the whole COVID stuff. And then when COVID happened, you price it whatever you want and it would sell. That's not the case anymore. Christina Smallhorn says,
Yeah,
same,
and
650 is luxury here.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I've got a couple of properties in the middle of the market that there were just no buyers for. So unless you do a total yard sale discount, you don't have anybody for it. So it's hard to. So every other down market that I've seen in the past has seen a flood of new inventory, and if people need to sell out of distress, they money to the table. I don't see either one of those happening in this market shift because inventory won't spike because so many people in sub 4% mortgages, and people won't have to bring money to the table because of the appreciation that's happened over the last 10 or 15 years. And so I think it's just going to be a flat road with a few pockets of no demand, probably across the country.
Yeah. Yeah, I that's what I feel like too. It's just going to everything's going to levelize for a bit until those rates drop. I think if those rates drop, if it hits 5s or low 5s, you're going to have so many buyers enter the market. And I think that's when we're going to have a supply issue, to be honest. This article is from Realtor. It says more homes hit the market, but buyers aren't rushing in yet. This again echoes just what we were talking about. Pending home sales continue to lag, but growing inventory and pent up buyer demand may not stay bottled up for much longer. Pending home sales is a forward-looking indicator. The data shows continuation of small declines in contract signings despite the inventory and the market increasing. Lawrence Yun's chief economist. Yeah, that's to be expected. There's a nice little infographic here that you guys can share and do a green screen on. I would strongly recommend using these Realtor graphics to do green screens because they look professional. They're good. And the name is out there. A lot of people know what the National Association of Realtors are, so the graphic alone would kind of lend it to some credibility. So it's a good idea. Oh man, sorry guys. Instagram, for whatever reason, will suddenly not show me the comments. So I apologize. Bradley, your Realtor, says New Jersey is still a seller's market, but buyers are getting picky. Let's see if I had any other comments on that one. Okay, no. All right, I'll try to, every now and then, I'll try to remember to go over to Instagram and scroll. It's not like live scrolling for me. It's just stalled, so. All right, mortgage demand drops to the lowest level since May as interest rate stalls. Speaking of stalls, let's see, mortgage applications fell to the lowest level since May with both purchase and refinance activity declining over the week, said Joel Kahn, deputy chief economist at the Mortgage Bankers Association. Applications for a mortgage to purchase a home dropped 6% for the week. That's a pretty big drop for the week. And we're 17% higher than the same week a year ago. Well, that's interesting. 17% higher than the same week a year ago, but 6% week to week drop. However, volume is slow and the annual comparison is skewing deceptively high. Volume, however, is so slow that the annual comparison is skewing deceptively high. Okay. All right. This next article is on Redfin. Washington, D.C. housing supply rose 23% in June, one of the biggest jumps on record. So prepare for more TikToks about the Washington, D.C. housing supply due to Trump letting go all the all the federal employees. Christine says, I agree flat, but what about those Crash Bro YouTubers going to say? Christina, I have a prediction. I think the housing Crash Bros have kind of lost their luster and are going to switch to AI Crash Bros because that's a much longer game. And I think you'll slowly start to see their content shift and be all about the apocalypse, the incoming apocalypse of robots taking over. That's my prediction. Washington, D.C. supply is up, way up, which is good news for our clients that are moving there because they can get some good deals. The D.C. home prices are trickling down. Look at that. This is a huge, look at this drop. Gigantic drop. I mean, good grief. But from the top of this graph to the bottom of this graph is only about 3%. So, yeah, not that big. It's only down negative 1.8% as far as DC home prices. And then starter home sales rose 4% in June, a bright spot among the sluggish housing market. So if you have starter home sales increasing, then yes, you're going to have a decrease in the median home price because you have more homes selling on the bottom end of the market. This is exactly what we were talking about. And it's just something to keep in mind. If your clients are saying, well, I see home prices are going down. No, home prices aren't going down. Home prices are continuing to go up. It's the number of purchases at the lower end of the market are increasing, and that's going to lower the median home price. Hopefully this is helpful. Drop in the comments, and like if you like those kind of things, let me know. I mean, I could just talk about the article, but I feel like everyone gets caught up in those headlines, and part of our job is to clarify this stuff for our clients. I wanted to put this on your radar. The Bipartisan Road to Housing Act is officially on its way to the Senate. This article is from Broke Agent Media. It's a 315-page bill unveiled last Friday with the subject of markup meeting. Was the subject of a markup meeting the Senate Banking Committee Tuesday morning. Committee members reviewed the legislation, its contents, contributions on both sides of the political aisle. This is actually a bipartisan bill, which is nice to hear. Elizabeth Warren and Tim Scott are the authors, a Democrat and a Republican. Or I don't know if they're the authors. They're the curators, because the Road to Housing Act is actually an amalgamation of several different acts, all kind of put together and stuff cut out and put in. Their goal is to expand supply by focusing on manufactured modular housing, on reducing red tape that drives up development cost. That's interesting, Christina. You should talk about that on your show. Preserving affordability. Senators Smith, Rounds, Reed, Crapo introduced measures to protect housing options for renters, homeowners, veterans, and rural communities. Fixing valuations. So there you go, SCAP. They're out to correct you. Contributed provisions to improve the reliability of home appraisals and address appraiser workforce shortages. They should probably get out the middleman that's taking all your money. That would help correct the shortage. Reauthorization of federal programs. Senator Cortez Masto approved reauthorization of HUD's home program and the price program. Now, some of these programs were cut, and there's this big bill that was cut or wasn't included. Funding wasn't renewed for some of these programs as they were cutting the fraud, waste, and abuse. So they've cut back a whole lot. And now they're only adding back the stuff that makes sense with the goals of the administration. These things made sense, so they're trying to add those back. Local incentives. Warren and Scott secured support for innovation fund that rewards communities for boosting supply and lowering construction costs. That's interesting. Additional bipartisan proposals include Senator Kennedy's push for rezoning reforms and Senator Banks' support for modular financing options. More modular financing options would be helpful for sure, because especially if a home is older than 20 years old, and those modular homes, banks don't want to finance. So more support for that would certainly be helpful. And then these are all the acts and frameworks and stuff like that it includes is at the bottom of the article, which is interesting because you can click and read each one of those. This is still going through committee and amendments and changes and all that stuff. But call your senator and ask what parts they've contributed to. Call your representative and ask what they think about it. It has passed the House and is now at the Senate. The Senate's going to make its changes, send it back to the House, and the House will approve it or change it some more. So it goes back and forth a couple of times. But if they are cutting the red tape, it's something that I support. But it sounds like they're cutting red tape. Can I say the verbiage again? Yeah, I assume you're talking about, this is Cameron the Realtor on Instagram. I assume you're talking about the verbiage on the median home price. All I was saying was that if you have an increase in homes sold at the lower end of the market, then it's going to move the median sales price down, even though home prices are staying consistently high or going up. So just because you have more homes sold at the bottom, the prices aren't dropping because, I like the way you say, the home prices aren't dropping they're staying consistent or even going up a little bit. It's just the median home price is moving down because you have more homes sold at the bottom end of the market. So that moves the median down, and you have fewer homes selling at the top of the market. It's not that they're going down in price. Yeah, Braden, your realtor, said there's higher demand for more affordable homes. Yeah, for sure. Affordability is the key. It doesn't mean that homes are losing their value. And you're going to see like 50% of homes have decreased their list price. So 50% of home prices are dropping. That's the other headline you'll see. And that's not true. That just means that the current list prices are reducing. That doesn't mean that homes are losing value. All right, and the last thing I'll put on your radar, architect firms reported decline in billings for commercial real estate. We talked about this, a year or so ago, talking about the architecture firms and how they were actually increasing in demand because there were so many conversions from old commercial buildings that were being made into residential. All kinds of stuff was happening in that, and it looks like the billing for for architecture is going down in commercial space. So that could mean a little bit of a reprieve from the whole commercial sector, because if they stall in creating new supply, then you would suspect that the commercial sector might recover a bit. It's had trouble ever since. COVID. So, there it was. Got breaking news. Hang on. I guess it's not as entertaining if I say breaking news and then play it. Breaking news from This Week in Real Estate. I think I just have to find the sounder and then. All right, here it is. Divided. Fed holds key interest rate steady, defying Trump's demands for aggressive cuts. So pretty much everyone was thinking that the Fed would lower rates 25 basis points today, and they did not. So the Federal Open Market Committee voted 9-2 to keep the federal funds rate set in a range between 4.25 and 4.5. The decision was met with opposition from Governors Michelle Bowman and Christopher Waller, both of whom advocated for the Fed to start easing. This is the first time since 1993 that multiple governors cast no votes on a rate decision. Interesting. President Donald Trump's been pushing for the central bank to cut the benchmark rate. Yeah, now you're going to hear that stuff ramp up because I think a lot of people were thinking this would be a cut. Huh.
No, now they're saying September for the cut.
Now they're saying September for it?
Yeah, now, but they want to see because the other numbers look good, like they could do something, but he's waiting to see what happens in the future instead of going off of what is happening right now and in the near future. And he's waiting to see what goes on in the future. And that's not what he's supposed to do with the rate. The rate goes off of what has happened in the region.
Yeah, I would have trouble rationalizing their policy. Because it seems like they're trying to look at a crystal ball instead of saying, oh, here's what's happening currently, and then adjusting the rate. So Anthony Malfonte says, and then it will be October, and then November, and then 2026. Yeah, it could be. Well, in May, in May, Trump's going to get his Fed guy. Christina said he wasn't able to bully him into lowering it. He has 8 months left, and then Powell's gone. Yeah, that wasn't. I mean, I appreciated the bullying though. I want rates to go low. Rates are still below the 40-year average. Yeah, I know. That just doesn't make it feel better. All right, so we'll see what happens to the economy. Mia's old realtor. What's up, Mia? She's over on Instagram. She says on Zillow, whether you use showing time or not, Zillow makes appointments and ask for a tour. Oh, really? Megan said these buyers show up without agents accompanying them. Appointments made by Zillow. That's not really in our market so much yet. But yeah, that's interesting. All right, guys, that's all I got for the week. Thanks for hanging out so long. Thanks for the discussion. If you missed the show, don't worry, there's going to be a rerun. And I'm going to go, and as soon as this finishes processing, I'm going to clip the front part that didn't have the audio. So that should be fixed if you give me about like an hour. Anthony said, want to feel better? Have a good milkshake. That sounds amazing, actually. I'm like, dude, it'll have to be like a meal replacement shake. I'm too busy to eat. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Reach out to me on Instagram. I'm Rayzorback, RAYZORBACK. Christina Smallhorn says, see ya, Ray. See ya. Hey, we do have some new shows coming out. Teaser. Give me about a month. There's going to be some new shows hitting this YouTube channel. So I can't wait for it. Hopefully you guys will love it. And I'll see y'all next week. Bye, everybody.